This is the Jeanine Pirro Show. Now, here's Judge Jeanine Pirro.
Welcome back to the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. Joining us now is a great guy. He's a former congressman, Anthony D'Esposito. He represented New York's 4th Congressional District in the House of Representatives. And more than that, when he was in Congress, he served on the House Committee on Homeland Security. So he has some, I'm sure, inside information on what we're facing in terms of homeland security, terrorism, and dangers as we go forward into this new year. But he's an interesting guy, folks. It's the first time we've had him on the Tunnel to Towers Foundation Show. He was a councilman in the town of Hempstead. But more than that, he was an officer and ultimately a detective at the NYPD, which you all know I think is the best police department in the world, as evidenced by what happened on New Year's Eve, which was nothing. His credentials to me, and I must tell you, Congressman, are really from the ground up when you served as a first responder and, I think with the fire department, but that's old news. But folks, it gives you an idea of what kind of person, Anthony or Congressman D'Esposito is. So I brought him on today because of his experience, and I want to talk to him about the, homeland, the terrorism, homegrown terrorism in New Orleans, and the fact that we had a press conference last week within 12 hours of the actual massacre of 14 people. And it was, to me, the most disappointing press conference that I have ever heard. It was disjointed, disorganized. Everyone was fighting for time to talk. This one agency versus the mayor versus the FBI versus the police superintendent. Versus there was another, versus the governor, and then there was the attorney general. I mean, it was like, and they patted themselves on the back, Congressman D'Esposito. What was your reaction to it? Am I wrong?
No, I think you were 100% right. And by the way, good morning. Great to start Sunday with you. But yeah, I think what the press conference showed is that there's far too many individuals that are in the public safety world that are in it for the wrong reasons. And they're in it to get those clips on the news and to not really give the American people the answers that they deserve. And quite frankly, at a situation like that, what they should have been talking about is exactly how this happened, how we allowed someone with ISIS connections to cause the death of 14 individuals in the middle of Bourbon Street on, late New Year's Eve into New Year's morning. But instead, they were all looking for their moment of fame. And quite frankly, when the end of that press conference, we really didn't have the answers. And I think that's one of the things that not only does it anger, and I will say as now a former member of the House of Representatives, but not only does it anger lawmakers, it also is what gives the American people their concern and their distrust in government, because it seems like even in our worst of times, we're unable to get the answers that we need. But instead, like you said, we have individuals patting themselves on the back, fighting for microphone time.
It was really, really sad. And I'm going to talk about a lot of this with former Congressman Trey Gowdy, who like me, was a DA. And so I want to talk more about the national implications. Joe Biden comes out.
Joe Montana here. In my football days, I knew the importance of a strong defense. Now I'm sharing how you can help defend your health against pneumococcal pneumonia and invasive pneumococcal disease. Are you 50 or older like me? The CDC now recommends vaccination against pneumococcal disease. Even if you're healthy, your age puts you at increased risk and over 6 times greater risk of hospitalization with pneumococcal pneumonia than adults under 50. Schedule your appointment today at vaxassist.com.
Sponsored by Pfizer.
And Joe Biden downplays the ISIS threat, whether it's homegrown, ISIS-inspired, it doesn't matter. This is terrorism. This is a guy in a truck with a black flag on the back. And, within hours of this happening, Congressman, there was a call into one of the radio shows, and the caller said, there was a black flag. That means it's ISIS. And the person said, oh, well, you can't draw a conclusion. You know, it was almost like they didn't want to say it. So Biden comes out and he downplays it, and he repeatedly says that white supremacy is the most lethal danger to Americans.
It's absolutely insane. I mean, it's what we've been dealing with from Democrats for what seems like the last 4 years now. It's either white supremacy is the greatest threat to our national security or climate change. I mean, we've heard that in the Homeland Security Committee. Honestly, I mean, we're talking about the 1.5 million people who came across our border illegally, and they're trying to fight with us with regards to climate change. I mean, I think the Biden administration has done a terrible job.
You mean 10.5 million, not 1.5.
Yeah, I'm sorry, 10.5 million. He's done a terrible job in keeping Americans apprised of reality. I mean, look at the times that we've had hearings in the Homeland Security Committee, or hearings across Capitol Hill, or just talking to the press about the hundreds of migrants that we know of that have come across our southern border that are on the known terror watch list. And he downplays it, that it's not an issue, that the border is secure, that everyone is safe. And now we are quickly seeing the repercussions of that. We're seeing this resurgence of terrorist organizations that are into our country. And we don't know the individual who caused the deaths and destruction in New Orleans. We don't have the answer yet as to how he became into and pledged allegiance to ISIS. It could have been one of these individuals who crossed the border illegally that got to him and said, this is something that you should pledge yourself to. And that's really the problem.
Well, but we don't know that. But here's the bottom line, that there are terrorist sympathizers in this country, Congressman D'Esposito, and all you have to do is look at Columbia University. And then, in light of this attack and this massacre, the terrorist sympathizers unleashed a show of support for the massacre in New Orleans. And I get the First Amendment, and I get let them protest. But the problem with the Biden administration is that, and everyone who is a leftist, progressive, as far as I'm concerned, anti-American, will do anything but support having consequences for those people. So they go out there and they openly, in your face, support Hamas, support terrorism, and there's no response. The DA in Manhattan said, well, I'm going to drop all the charges against those dirtbags, he didn't use the word mine, who were on campus and were, trespassing, damaging, criminal mischief, breaking into the building, holding and kidnapping some of the superintendents and the maintenance workers. And so there's no response from the left. All they want to do is talk about how terrible white people are.
Well, that's the case. And not only did we see it, and I visited Columbia University a few times during the encampments, and I will tell you, there was, kids who probably, if you asked them to throw a dart at the Middle East on a map, they wouldn't even be able to tell you where it is. But yet they were standing on the campus of Columbia University wearing shirts and bandanas saying, I am Hamas. I mean, these are, like you said, people that are terrorist sympathizers. I mean, we saw it just the other night with the marches around New York City. Again, people burning flags, people supporting Hamas and these terrorist organizations that brutally came into Israel and brutally raped and murdered people. I mean, these are the people that you want to aspire to be. And yet, when they should be held accountable, when they should be put behind bars, when they should be arrested, you have rogue DAs who, quite frankly, have no regard for the law. I mean, this is a guy, Alvin Bragg, who before he even took office sent a memo out like he wanted to rewrite the New York State Penal Code.
He did.
Yeah, exactly. But someone needs to remind him that that's not the job of the DA. The job of the DA is to uphold the laws that we have in place. And he's been an absolute failure. But he is, like you said, a champion of the left. He's a champion of these terrorist sympathizers. And quite frankly, he's a champion of criminals. And that's why when we see across this country, especially in blue cities and states where people are committing crimes and they're not held accountable or responsible, that is what's spreading. I mean, if we don't think that people, especially those that are these homegrown violent extremists, if they don't see what's happening in blue cities and states, the fact that people can, shoot guns and rob people and push people in front of trains and not be held accountable, then, that's the kind of thing that encourages people to do insane things like we saw on New Year's.
I'm so looking forward to this next year, Congressman Anthony D'Esposito, and we very much appreciate your joining us this Sunday morning. And we hope going forward that we'll hear and see a lot more of you. Everyone, Congressman Anthony D'Esposito, a great guy. Thank you so much for being with us.
Thank you, Judge. Stay safe.
You too. All right. And up next here on the Judge Jeanine Tunnel to Towers Foundation show, I will be speaking with former federal prosecutor and district attorney Trey Gowdy, who also served as a U.S. representative for South Carolina's 4th Congressional District. What does he think of what's going on in New Orleans? Coming up right here on the Red Apple Audio Network.